And I'm a lot of things. I'm Nigerian, I'm Black, I'm an immigrant, I'm a woman, I'm a mother, I'm a wife. But above all, I'm a child of God and I'm a Catholic. So in terms of identity, that's what I'm going to focus on above all. Because in focusing on that, the rest of who I am will reach its greatest potential. Hi everyone, this is No Greater Joy with Muji. Welcome to my channel. I hope that you'll like and subscribe so that you can be notified when I make more videos. But this first topic that I want to talk about on my own channel is one that's really very deeply personal to me. Politics isn't easy for people to talk about, but let me just give you guys a little bit of background of where I'm coming from. So when I was 3 years old, I moved to America with my mom. My identity is something that I feel like was always challenged growing up because I came here at a really young age. I was an immigrant. I wasn't an African American. I wasn't quite Black enough. And I also had to take my faith into consideration. So I want to talk to you guys about that. When I was 7, my mom and I moved to New Jersey. My experience there was like basically my first time being in school in America. This is Jersey City. The kids were super nice. And I was really popular. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess people like me. And that's nice. Who doesn't want to be liked, right? And so that was great, but we were only there for 6 months. Not long after, we moved to Cleveland, particularly Parma, Ohio. And this is where I spent the majority of my, adolescent, teenage, early adult years. And it was a very different experience from what I experienced in New Jersey. In the city of Parma, Ohio, we had a really beautiful parish. The parish was very supportive to us. My mom made some of the best friends that she would ever have, and they were friends until her passing. We became part of that parish, and they were our family forever. They still are a part of my family. But the students, the kids were mean. I got bullied really badly because of my disability. The reason we came to America was because I was sick. So I had a really bad limp. I had like a orthopedic lift outside of my shoe. It was not cool looking at all. And the kids were really not nice, but also there was a lot of racism, which is something that I had obviously not experienced in Nigeria, and I hadn't experienced it in New Jersey. But this was a predominantly, white school. In fact, I was the only Black child. And my mom never experienced it with any of, the parishioners, but the kids, I don't know, the kids were just, I don't know where they got it from, you get it from somewhere, I guess, but this was just my experience. And, this was my experience throughout grade school, and some of this stuck with me after high school. I actually had one of those bullies reach out to me on AIM. We all remember AIM. And start saying things about how my cotton picking was going and things like that. So I will say that this is probably the worst experience of racism that I've ever encountered. In my adult years, I've never seen anything to that gravity. I've never seen anything to that degree. So I didn't feel like I fit in with white people, but I didn't really care. A lot of my friends were white, but I also had Black friends and a lot of Hispanic friends. In the apartment complex where my mom and I lived, it was just very, there were a lot of different races. It was just very multicultural. So I had that experience at school, but I also knew that, I had a lot of really great friends that were white. And so I didn't have that as my perception of white people. That was just a particular, experience that I was having in that moment. But I did feel like, okay, well, I don't quite totally fit in. And I tried extra hard to carry myself a certain way, because I had that fear that I might be perceived by, as less than by some white people. But I also had the realization that not everyone is like that. Not all white people are like that. But it was just the fact that I was a young kid and I was impressionable, and I was like, okay, I'm different. So fast forward, going into college, I went to Cleveland State University. I graduated with 2 degrees in journalism and promotional communications with a focus in marketing and psychology. And at that school, it was very, very diverse. So we had a lot of different cultures, a lot of different backgrounds. We had a lot of Nigerians. So this was really interesting because I didn't quite fit in there either. You know, my brothers came some years after I came, but they were much older. So when I came to America, I was 7. When they came to America, my youngest brother was 14 and my eldest was 19. So it was a really different experience for them. They came in and they assimilated really quickly. Like their accents changed before long, and they were popular. They made friends, and they had just come from Nigeria, so they really gravitated towards like other Nigerians. At this point, I'd been in America for many years. Like I had grown up around a lot of white people, but also like, you know, had a lot of Black and Hispanic friends as well. But I didn't quite have the thought to look specifically for Nigerian friends. I did have some, but my friends were just kind of like ran the gamut in terms of ethnicity. But I want to just highlight a specific experience that I had. Some students that my brothers knew and that we knew from our university invited me to a party, and I thought that was really nice. Like they knew that I had been grieving, and it was nice for them to extend that olive branch. I think at this particular time, my mom had passed away, and it was before my dad had passed away. So I went to this party, and it was a huge high-rise apartment complex, and I remember pressing the button for them to page me in, but they were overhead on a balcony, and they answered the door. They buzzed me in, but before I walked in, I could hear one of the girls ask, "Oh, I don't recognize her. Is she Nigerian?" And one of my friends, or one of the guys, said, "Oh no, that one's a white girl." Oh, so then I have to walk into this party. "Oh, hey guys, white girl here." No. But it was like, wow, I'm not really accepted here either. You know, I don't have my Nigerian accent any longer. I'm not, you know, fresh off the boat. I've been here for a while and I kind of sound different. And I guess I didn't do everything that I could to build my Nigerian community, but I don't know. I was just kind of doing my thing. Like I didn't look for people to be friends with me that belonged to any specific culture. I will say now that I'm older and now that I have children, I do seek that more because I want them to be, I want our kids to be able to know their culture. So whether it's, you know, attending Nigerian events or taking my kids to Nigeria or just highlighting things in our culture, like it's definitely a priority for me. It's definitely something that I want my kids to embrace. My culture is really beautiful. Nigerian culture is beautiful, and they're far away from it. So I certainly do things as a parent to make sure that my children know that side of their culture. But it was just interesting because at this point, you know, I'm not white. I don't fit in there. Apparently, I'm not Nigerian enough. And I had this other experience growing up. My mom was a teacher. She taught at the inner city schools in Cleveland. She was an amazing teacher. She just was one of those people that just had that perfect combination of like firmness and love. So the kids, it's exactly what they needed. So anyways, so growing up, like I would go to school with my mom if I had like an off day or something, if we, you know, were off for whatever reason. And I remember the first time I did that, the first time I went with her, I started to talk to some of the kids and say hi, and they're like, "Oh, you sound like a white girl. Why does she sound like a white girl?" And I was like, "Oh, I guess I do sound different." I never even thought about it. And I just ceased to speak after that. Like I would go back to school with her and I would visit, you know, her class with her. But when I was there, like I was a really extroverted kid. But when I was there, I grew so self-conscious that I just didn't want to talk around them anymore. They thought I was really quiet, but it's like, oh, I have lots to say. Like I'm super fun, but you'll never know because now I'm just terrified. And I think it was innocent, like they're kids. Kids just point out things that they see, right? And it's just something that they notice. So my identity was very confusing. I was trying to figure out who I was. Like I was obviously not white. I but I also was not African American. I didn't grow up in African American culture. I didn't sound African American. Apparently, I sounded white. But I also didn't sound Nigerian. I wasn't Nigerian enough. And so I'm like, well, who am I? What is my identity? Where do I fit in? And it seems like there's just this pressure to put people, and maybe it's just partly human nature, but there's this pressure to put people into a box, right? Like, where do you fit in? Let me look at you. What are you wearing? What do you sound like? Oh, like you must be rich. Like, oh, let me see how you speak. You must be educated. So some of it's innocent. I guess we all kind of do it. A lot of it is done subconsciously. Where it gets dangerous, in my opinion, is when we feel that we can judge people because they don't fit exactly in the box in the way that we feel like they should. Upon thinking about my identity, I think for a while I was just like, I don't know, I'm not anything, I'm just me, right? But I realized in my adult years, I realized exactly who I was. I'm a Catholic. As I got older, I realized that my identity above all is rooted in my Catholic faith. I especially realized this when politics came into play, when I got a little bit older and I got a little bit more politically savvy. I grew in my faith and became a Catholic that was more adherent to the teachings. I realized that politics and faith are just so intertwined. And when America's first Black president was elected, we were thrilled. My mom was overjoyed. I mean, I was kind of on the younger side, but I was very happy too. This was the first time it had ever happened. And before long, my mom started to realize that although that was a beautiful thing to witness in our nation's history, because this is my nation, I am American, and I'm proud of this country and I love it here. She realized that the Democratic Party did just not align with her faith. She was really unhappy with, their pro-choice stance and the fact that they didn't recognize the fact that an unborn fetus, an unborn baby, is a human being. And although we should advocate for women's rights, there is the fact that that is a living, breathing person with its own genetic makeup, with its own desire to live if it would be allowed. And so that's something that my mom would often talk about as well. We weren't politically savvy. I think it's partly because we were immigrants. We didn't grow up, knowing a lot of America's history. And politics just weren't something that we talked about. Like, we had fun in my family. We weren't sitting around the table talking about politics, but I also think it's really important to do so. But it's just not something that we did because of the fact that we were immigrants and we just weren't, it's just not something that we did. So in my adult years, I started to think more about these topics. I started to grow in my faith and become more traditional before I even met my husband. And thank God that I did, because my faith is what I clung to when tragedy hit fourfold. I lost my mom. A few months later, I lost my father. And not long after that, I lost my grandmother and my uncle, who was like a second father to me in a span of a year. Prior to that, I'd never lost anyone. And I just thank God that he brought me closer to him in that time, because that's the only thing that helped me to survive all of that. Because I was with my mom when she passed away, and what I experienced and what I saw was something that I thought was going to haunt me for the rest of my life. And by his grace, it hasn't. It actually doesn't make any sense that it hasn't. But that's just to say that my identity above all is rooted in my faith and my love for our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So as I've gotten older and I'm trying to be a good patriot and think about my political affiliations and what I identify with in terms of that, the most important thing to me is my faith. So I vote Republican because I'm going to adhere to the church teachings in terms of life. I'm pro-life in terms of marriage and upholding the sanctity of marriage between a man and a woman. Loving and understanding all people regardless of their sexual orientation and respecting them, but in terms of marriage, that's between a man and a woman. and other areas where our faith and politics overlap. So I've never been brave enough to speak about these things before. I have a lot of friends that are, and family that are liberal. I would never want to hurt anyone or offend anyone. But I've just come to the realization that I can't be afraid of speaking what I know to be the truth. It doesn't change the way that I feel about anyone who opposes my opinion. There is only one truth, and I'm a lot of things. I'm Nigerian, I'm Black, I'm an immigrant, I'm a woman, I'm a mother, I'm a wife. But above all, I'm a child of God and I'm a Catholic. So in terms of identity, that's what I'm going to focus on above all. Because in focusing on that, the rest of who I am will reach its greatest potential. I will be the best mother I can be, the best wife I can be, I'll be the best friend I can be, the best brother and sister and stranger. All the things that I am will be greater because my faith is put first. And I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this. You know, we have a lot of people that identify as certain thing with certain things. And people say, I identify my race first and then my faith. And I'm not judging anyone, but this is just where I stand, and this is where I do think that we should all stand. So that's all I have to say. I hope that you enjoyed your time with me. I look forward to talking to you guys more. I have a lot to say. I feel like I've had a really unique experience being here in the United States as a Black woman, as a conservative, as an immigrant, and as a Catholic who's in this really beautiful community. I feel supported, and I now feel and know that this opinion is not being pulled by anyone. I don't feel any kind of pressure to fit into any particular box. I am now old enough to know that my opinion is my own, and I'm grateful that I'm now in a community where I'm supported, so I feel brave enough to speak about some of these things now. So if you like this, like it, subscribe, and join me again next time on No Greater Joy. God bless you.